AskReddit by Stamford Sterling. What is something that happens at casinos that is hidden from the public? Just how much money goes unclaimed and collected? I worked in the accounting department at one of the main gaming conglomerates and was tasked with cleaning up their unclaimed property accounts. There were players at Wales who deposited millions and just forgot about it for years. My dad, who died last month at age 90, was awfully good at finding machines that had money on them. Most of the time, it was basically pocket change, but he found a couple of three-figure jackpots over the years. Of course, he would play around so nobody could accuse him of deliberately breaking rules, lol. Love you, Dad. I wandered down to the basement of MGM from a truck ramp and man, it was like a whole city down there. Imagine a massive warehouse with roads and offices and supplies everywhere. The opposite of the glitz going on above it. My ex worked for MGM for a while and she hooked me up with a camped room at NYNY when I came to visit family. She met me at the check-in at NYNY and then asked if I wanted to see her office. She took me through a door, down some steps and then through several corridors, passing by laundries, cafeterias, locker rooms, offices, storage, etc. She would point out all of these different areas and points of interest along the way and all I could think of, where the hell are we? Are we even in the same hotel? We eventually go up some stairs and out a door and we're now at the valet area next to where her office is located. Granted, we've only walked a few properties over, but it's simply unbelievable how much activity there is underneath those hotels. My aunt worked at one in Palm Springs, and she said they basically had a room full of extra stools. Old people were sure they were about to hit, and they'd just piss and shit themselves instead of giving up their machine. Extra stools to replace the extra stools left behind. All the seats they have to replace because of the shockingly high number of PPL that evacuate their bladders and bowels in them. My friend and I were at a casino, and while I was playing blackjack, my friend decided to do 10 push-ups for every hand I won. He was drunk. As he was doing his first set, the dealer tells me, "You really need to tell him not to put his face that close to the floor under this table. You can't imagine how disgusting it is." Old people dying. I knew a couple who worked the cage and the floor at a Hard Rock, and they used to tell me stories about this. When they found someone dead at a machine, they'd quietly get them into a wheelchair, put a blanket over them, and roll them out the back to a waiting ambulance. They also talked about how often people would kill themselves. One guy climbed the safety fence and jumped off the top of the parking garage, and they found a lot of people dead in their bathtub in various ways. That, and watching someone bet and lose the same amount as my student loans in about 5 minutes, absolutely ruined casinos for me. They just depress the shit out of me. When the MGM Grand opened in Las Vegas, you walk through a giant lion's mouth to get to the front door. Many Asian gamblers saw it as a sign of bad luck, so they wouldn't go in. Now it's a smaller statue. Crazy nobody caught that before they installed it in the first place. Suicides. Properties go to great lengths to hide these events from the public, given how bad for business it is. But it happens, and quickly taken care of. It's a very open but grim secret amongst casino workers apparently. I was just there for the first time and an Uber driver was gently implying this, saying how many people lose everything and are just too embarrassed to go home. The number of kids who are left alone at a casino so mom and dad can gamble. Not on the floor, but gift shops or food courts. It's pretty sad. The casinos used to have pretty damn good arcades. My folks would gamble for an hour or two and leave me with a roll of quarters. The arcades were safe, clean and had every popular game. It's been a while since I have been to a casino, but I can't imagine that the financial model for arcade games as they exist now really supports that. I knew someone who hit the jackpot on a slot. It was around $200,000. The casino managers came out to verify, but they said the machine malfunctioned and it didn't count. How is that legal? They're probably right if this was the States. Casinos are heavily regulated, malfunctions happen. I'm sure a report was filed into some folder, and if you really wanted to you can hassle the state gaming agents to investigate and confirm that they're telling the truth. In Atlantic City there are a lot of unused stairwells and corridors, especially now that the casinos are not as busy. Many homeless people find their way into them and live. A friend of mine told me about a time they were using a stairwell to move furniture and drywall for a remodel. They found 2 landings with beds and clothing there, and one resident claimed he had been there over a year. Used to be a blackjack dealer, in NV. To me, the most disgusting thing was watching people I knew, who were struggling to feed their families, come in and feed their entire paycheck into a slot machine, or gaming table. And, I was never allowed to say anything. Not on or off the job. I ended up quitting, as it was so depressing. Edit typo. When I went to Vegas last year, my Uber driver said he was a manager at one of the casinos for like 20 years and said this was the worst thing he'd see. His employees get their paychecks and just go sit at the same slot or table for hours. They either leave with no money or got lucky and hit something. Edit. For the people saying this is a lie. Sorry, maybe if misunderstood if it was at the same casino or another one after hours. This was all in a 20-minute ride and we were just talking about crazy things he's seen working in the industry and how he's seen gambling addiction really ruins people's lives. Not sure about Western casinos, but this is for Asian casinos. Asians generally subscribe to the supernatural and definitely the superstitions that go along with gambling. Casino owners tend to hire ghost babies, toils or cumin tongs, aborted baby spirits, to kind of curse players into losing. Superstitious players will bring candies, toss them under tables so the ghost babies leave them alone because of the candy bribe and let them win. Where can I hire a ghost baby though? 90% of casinos have private areas for the high rollers, politicians, gangsters, and other VIPs. I was able to deal cards at one of those events. I was literally tipped $500 by some guy for keeping the water liquid. My wife is friends with a lady whose husband drives VIPs around for a casino. The top guys get assigned a special room with their own private butler. They might be gambling $100 K a hand and tipping $5 K for drinks, rides, etc. This reminded me of a story I heard when I was living in Australia. At the time one of the richest guys in Australia was Carrie Packer. Old man Packer liked to gamble and would regularly fly to Vegas and gamble huge. I dated a girl at the time who was a dealer in one of his casinos and said he was known to tip big and once had asked a cocktail waitress how much she had left on her mortgage and tipped her that much. Several years later I was in Vegas talking to Pit Boss and was relaying this story, and without missing a beat he said, "That's a true story." Robberies, murders. The father of a friend of mine was robbed, stabbed and killed in the parkade of a local casino in the late 90s, after he won big. It never made the news, and a friend of mine who worked at the same casino 5 years later swore I was making it up because she had never heard anything about it. After talking to a few security guys she finally had someone give her an off-the-record, wink-nod confirmation that it did happen, but they went the extra mile to keep the story buried. For anyone wondering, if you win a good size of money, you can request that casino security escort you to a spot either in the casino or not far from it and they will. Also, casinos can wire money or do other forms of payment for large sums of money if you ask. There is never a reason really to walk around with $10 K plus by yourself to any place in Vegas. One of my dad's best friends died on the floor of the Horror Show Casino in Baltimore. Upon googling his name, I can't find a single mention of it. I imagine deaths that don't involve violence aren't ever really talked about. To be fair, random people die in all kinds of businesses all the time and it doesn't make the news. When some dude has a heart attack and dies in the middle of the Outback Steakhouse, it's a story for the people that were in there at the time. The general public doesn't care, though, and will probably never hear about it. A bunch of years ago, the matriarch of a family jumped overboard because she spent the family's vacation cash in the casino on our cruise ship. Saw a man drop dead at a slot machine once. No one around him stopped their play. Something similar happened to me. I was in a elevator with my parents, and right before the doors closed I caught my eye on a gurney being wheeled out of the front doors. My cousin works at a casino, and depending on what table he is working, requires a uniform vest tie clip change. There is a large employee room with hundreds of lockers. He shares his with 2 others that usually work different shifts areas than him. In the locker are 6 hooks, 2 for each person, a top cubby with 3 sections, for water bottles, etc., a lower section with 3 sections, for boots change shoes, and above the footwear section a 3-section mini locker that you bring your own lock, where you put your wallet, valuables, etc. that you can't have on your person when you are on the floor. The lockers are large enough to keep your section closed if you need to swap during your shift. He only very rarely runs into a locker buddy, unless they've picked up an extra shift, or if there is a special event. He is super short and his locker mates are a very tall man and an average height woman. He thinks locker mates are chosen very specifically to avoid thefts, minimal contact, etc., though he can't prove that. I'm just saying it sounds like there is enough room for people to have their own lockers. Not totally hidden from the public since I, a member of the public, was shown it, but major casinos in Vegas have an armory room, stockpiles of weapons and tactical gear. Was staying at a casino on the main strip, and had a number of guns with me for a meetup at a nearby shooting range, and asked the front desk if they had somewhere I could keep them since I didn't really like the idea of leaving them unattended in my room or car. A security guy came out and said follow me to the armory, and led me to an extremely secure room full of all kinds of rifles and vests and whatnot, pointed to an empty locking cabinet I could put my stuff in, and gave me a claim ticket to pick them back up again later. That's good to know. All of the pissing and shitting stories makes me think about a time I was at the Cosmo in Las Vegas. I was playing a slot machine and really had to pee and was going through the last few spins when bam I won $200-ish. I pressed the button for the little paper winnings thing to come out and it wouldn't come out and the screen said attendant called. I waited and almost pissed myself until they finally came and paid me. I struggled with the do I piss myself dilemma. If I was staying at the hotel and could have gotten showered and changed I might have. A couple are not hidden, but not obvious to the average casino goer. Some casinos add scents to the air. They do not pump in extra oxygen in as some people believe. They also keep the temperatures on the cool side to keep people from getting sleepy. No clocks on the walls and, in general, no windows with views to the outside. UK government changed the law that all casinos have to have clocks now. They don't make them very big obviously, but they can lose their license if they fail an inspection. The really friendly girl at the bar is a hooker. Thank God. I was so afraid I wouldn't be able to find one. If you drunkenly break into the kitchen to make a quesadilla, they let you eat it before having someone take you back to your room. How much waste there is. Tons of food, paper products, stuff like soaps, shampoos, lotions, key packets, folders. It's obscene. We've got a lot of rats here in Vegas that appreciate it, though. In LV, the sheer amount of data that is collected and analyzed on everything, from the weekend traffic coming from LA, the demographics going to see a concert show and how that impacts staffing, everything about your slot or table play, down to how the size of the pans used in a buffet relates to food waste. Equal number of blueberries in every muffin. Security has to constantly wander the parking lots to see if there are any babies or dogs being left in the car. Real bad if security doesn't notice in time. The employee dining room is an entire buffet and convenience store with good quality at great prices. Had a friend that worked one of the party pools at a Vegas casino, similar to the former rehab at Hard Rock. He said that an average of 12 people die a year, and if no one notices, they are directed to just leave the person there, that is if they are on a float or lounge chair. So corpses are floating around in the pool, in addition to the pee, poop, and vomit that doesn't get properly cleaned out. The amount of people who get their car repossessed. They come to security thinking their car got stolen. The company will call us out of courtesy to let us know they took someone's vehicle. Can't pay their car payment but come gamble for hours. The amount of money you can find just looking down on the floor. All sorts of cash. Not just on the casino floor but in the bathrooms and halls too. Both cash and money vouchers. The homeless would roam the floor looking for tickets to redeem. Usually they are the ones for a few cents that people don't bother to cash out and just toss in the bin or on the floor. How safe casinos are for kids in a weird way. I had a young relative experience distress in LV and told her to get into any casino ASAP. Security intercepted her in a second and she was helped. Secret VIP doors. I used to hang with high rollers. If you wagered over $400k plus a year at the casino, you're given a VIP card to access private rooms and lounges. Randomly next to a slot machine in the wall would be a card reader. Even if you did see it, you might assume it's a staff area, but in reality, it was a VIP lounge. One door opens to a huge balcony overlooking the lobby. Full bar, food, and private staff that will take care of you. When I was in college I read Fools Die by Mario Puzo. It's about the casino industry and specifically about the security at casinos. My friend's uncle was the head of security at a casino and we went to meet him at his job. I was really excited to actually see what I had read about. He was nice enough to meet with us, but one of the first things he said was, "Of course I can't show you any of the security because that's confidential." Sucked. People peeing pooping in their chairs while they play slots and not leaving them until they are done playing. The ATMs don't make it well known that someone's account is empty. Their bartenders also have a magic way of making bills disappear if you've spent a long time at one of their machines. Bills as in dollar bills or bills as in the check. The office in the basement where you can sign over your house for gambling money. We were just at Resorts World last weekend and there were signs in the elevators about how you could lay your debit card down at the tables. We don't drink or gamble. We were there to see Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, and that idea just made us shudder. We also had to the casino ATM for some cash to have for dinner with friends, and that fare charged $10. I was a host. If there was an embezzlement charge in the paper, they were always my customer. People do destroy their lives to bet. And craps people are always dicks. Human trafficking happens a lot in casinos. I very briefly worked at one and a huge part of the training was human trafficking. Also roaches are everywhere. What does it mean that human trafficking happens in a casino? What specifically is happening? Who is doing what to whom? Suicides are a big one. There's a certain town with a certain falls and a casino that has connections with local media to not report on people jumping over the edge to commit suicide because they ruined their life at the casino. To say nothing of the broke people who lost everything, trying to hitch a free ride back to the big city. In big ones there's a guy whose job it is to pick up high rollers at the airport, wait on the mat every moment, give them the luxury penthouse suite at the hotel, etc. They do this to make them feel important and they know it's an investment. They get these guys to spend insane amounts of money. Louis Theroux has a good documentary on this. Not sure about all casinos, but security banging the restaurant girls was pretty common where I worked. Manager of the restaurant got fired for having sex in the back on the prep table. Apparently there are lots of cameras in casinos. Who knew? He was banging cocktail waitresses 2 at a time. Players couldn't get a drink at the table. I worked at MGM for a while. Overall it sucked tbh, but I will say they had an incredible break room. Like full on restaurant quality food for us, no charge. Even cooks you could custom order sandwiches from if you didn't want the meals on offer for that night. I put on a bit of weight working there. On extremely gluttonous days I would get to work, eat some corn or clam chowder before work, break time full meal of like meat, potatoes, veggies etc. Then at the end of my shift around 8 AM could even go in again and have pancakes and bacon. Just ridiculous honestly. I'm talking real food, don't imagine microwave stuff. My first casino job, their EDR kitchen was connected to the buffets. So when guests had crab legs, so did we. Prostitution. Not talking Nevada. Washington state casinos run by Vegas companies in small towns on reservations. Does not help the communities they are in. Many work there for minimum wage and gamble away their meager earnings. Meth and fentanyl are rampant and trafficked on the premises. The large and growing binders filled with homes and properties that casinos end up owning because people are so sure they're going to win. They borrow against their mortgage and lose. A friend of mine's wife was an EA for the head of finance at a local casino and mentioned to her that he doesn't want to be in the real estate business, as they had hundreds of mortgages in those binders they needed to clear so escrow away from people who couldn't pay their debts. For casinos on Native American grounds, the amount of SAR that happen against female staff by male elders, who are apparently immune to prosecution on their own lands. They just terminate the workers who even hint at filing complaints, because those labor laws can't be enforced on their lands. I've heard firsthand about grabbing stories where the waitresses have to just deal with it, or they can leave, or be shown the door. The sheer amount of stealthy surveillance and tracking the moment you walk in the door. They know based on the NFC and the casino card they mailed you the moment you walk in. They have your name, age, income, and where you are in the casino. They'll route people out to find you by name and upgrade your card to allow you greater use of the facilities. This all happens well before advanced facial recognition starts mapping your movements through the gaming floors. I just wanted to thank all the former and current casino workers for letting us into their world. This is interesting stuff to me. Drug use. I've so many people do drugs while playing slots. Casino doesn't say anything. They are just happy they are losing their money. The money being funneled to a grocery store in Kansas City, which is as close as the bosses could get. I worked at casinos on the strip in the 90s. The stuff that the eyes, security cameras, catch during the porn convention surprised me. And I was pleasantly surprised that the porn industry folks were the nicest, most polite customers, and tons of fun to serve. BC they had such a great time and treated staff very well. Suicides. Lots of suicides in parking lots. A big loss, and they don't want to tell the family that they gambled the house and lost. Burglaries of the rooms. I was staying at the Four Queens downtown many years ago and my room was burglarized in what was clearly an inside job. Housekeeping had cased the room, they picked which bags had which items at the time. Then when the burglary happened later that evening, they ignored much more valuable items in bags that had not arrived until later and were not part of the initial scan. They then tried to extort us after calling later at night. Management would not provide video, call logs, or other data and was totally useless, as, interestingly, was LVPD. Never in my life has it been clearer that something was organized crime. Do journalists just ask these random mass questions now so they don't have to write their papers themselves? Read ARP's history, trying to get that blog payday. I just looked lol.